Okay, so are you ready for this?
I am always excited to dive into these texts.
Today's deep dive, oh, it's a big one.
Yeah, this one's going to be a long one.
We are tackling Surah Al-Baqarah from the Quran,
Second chapter, the longest.
longest chapter, which is pretty interesting,
Definitely sets it apart.
right? I mean, they don't call it the cow for nothing,
The
right?
cow, Al-Baqarah, gotta be a story there.
There's got to be some
Oh, yeah,
intrigue behind that name.
absolutely.
But before we even get there, can you tell us, like, why is this chapter such a big deal? What's so special about Al-Baqarah?
Well, it's kind of a cornerstone of Islamic thought. You know,
Okay.
it brings together faith, history, law. It's like this amazing tapestry of guidance.
So it's not just like stories, it's like actual, like,
Oh, it's very practical.
practical stuff.
Very practical. It's like a guidebook for Muslims, how to live their faith.
Okay, guidebook, I like that.
Yeah.
So, like, foundations first, right?
Mm.
What does Al-Baqarah tell us about, like, the core beliefs of Islam?
Well, like the bedrock, the foundation is belief in one God, right? Tawhid, the oneness.
Okay.
But what's really interesting is who the surah is talking to. It's not just preaching to the choir.
Oh, interesting.
It's directly addressing people who might doubt or even completely reject the idea of God.
It's like, come on in, let's have a conversation.
Exactly. Like, let's reason this out, think about the evidence,
Right.
And it even calls out those who say they believe, but their actions don't match up, the hypocrites.
Ooh, tough crowd.
Yeah, it's about sincerity, aligning your heart with your actions.
So pretty intense right from the start.
Lays it all out.
Okay, but it's not all doom and gloom, right?
Yeah.
There's also, like, that beautiful story about Adam, right?
Oh, the Adamic narrative. Yeah, incredibly powerful story.
Because that, to me, that speaks about second chances redemption.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that we all make mistakes. Even, Adam, the first human, messed up big time.
Yeah.
But God's mercy is always there, waiting for us to turn back to him.
It's a very hopeful story, actually.
It's a story of repentance, recognizing your wrongs and striving to do better.
So much forgiveness.
Always there. That door is always open.
Okay, so we've got, like, these core beliefs, this reminder about mercy and repentance.
Right.
And then the Surah takes this interesting turn, right? It starts talking about the children of Israel.
Bani Israel, yeah. A lot of focus on their history in Al-Baqarah.
What's the connection there? Why is their story so important for Muslims today?
It's all about learning from the past,
Oh.
Al-Baqarah recounts their journey, the good and the bad, the blessings they received from God, and the consequences of the disobedience.
So it's kind of like a cautionary tale.
In a way, yeah. By understanding their struggles, Muslims can try to avoid making the same mistakes.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's not just like ancient history. It's
It's relevant, very much so,
how lived
to
in
the lives of Muslims today.
Okay, so we've got faith, history, and then Al-Baqarah gets down to brass tacks, right? Like actual guidelines for how to live.
Absolutely. It gets very practical.
All right, it's like, okay, you believe, now what?
Right. How do you put that belief into action? So you've got prayer, fasting, charity, all these acts of worship laid out.
So it's not just about rituals, it's about
It's about a way of life.
living it out.
Yeah, and it's also about social justice.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, for instance, zakah, a form of obligatory charity. It's not just about giving. It's about purifying your wealth, ensuring that resources are distributed fairly.
That's powerful, like a built-in system for taking care of each other.
Exactly.
Okay, so like social justice, and of course you can't talk about Al-Baqarah without talking about Tawhid, right? The oneness of God.
Absolutely
Because
sensitive.
I remember reading a story about Abraham, like, smashing idols. Is that in this chapter?
That specific story isn't in Al-Baqarah, but the spirit of it, the rejection of idol worship, is all over this surah.
Okay, yeah, it's like that uncompromising belief in...
One God and only one God. No partners, no intermediaries.
It's powerful. And that makes me think about, like, the idea of covenants, right? God made a covenant with the children of Israel,
Right.
and Muslims have a covenant too. Does Al-Baqarah talk about that?
Yeah, it does. It reminds us that with these covenants come responsibilities. It's not a one-way street.
It's like a contract.
Yeah, like a contract. God promises guidance and mercy, and we, in turn, strive to follow his will.
Makes you think about your own commitment, right? Like, how seriously do you take this relationship?
It's a question we all have to ask ourselves.
And speaking of powerful reminders, Al-Baqarah contains one of the most profound verses in the entire Quran, Ayat al-Kursi, the verse of the throne, right?
Oh, yes, incredibly powerful. It speaks about God's majesty, knowledge, his absolute power over everything.
I get chills every time I read it.
It's often recited for protection, for solace, It's a reminder that no matter what you're going through, God is always there.
Always there. That's comforting.
Yep. And it speaks to that universal human need to connect with something greater than ourselves.
And that's something everyone can relate to, regardless of their faith.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've talked about faith, history, law, all these big themes. But there's something else that really stands out in Al-Baqarah, the emphasis on community.
Right. It's not just about individual piety.
It's
about being part of a larger whole, supporting each other, working together for the common good.
It's like we're all in this together.
Exactly. And Al-Baqarah really stresses that, the importance of unity, cooperation, helping those in need.
It's beautiful, really.
It's a vision of a society where everyone cares for each other.
Okay, wow. We've covered so much ground, from the foundations of faith to practical guidance to these big universal themes.
Al-Baqarah really packs it all in.
It does. It's an amazing chapter.
It is. And as you continue to explore it, I'd like you to think about this. How do the themes of Al-Baqarah, like the story of Adam and God's forgiveness, how do they resonate with human experiences beyond just the Muslim community?
That's a really good question.
What can we learn from these ancient stories, these teachings, that can apply to our lives today, no matter who we are?
Something to ponder, for sure.
Always more to discover.
Well, on that note, thanks for taking this deep dive with us into Al-Baqarah.
Always a pleasure.
Until next time.
See you then.